when we're talking about election interference, what are the tactics and methods that are being used?
There's so many. A really, really fun and fulfilling and great thing I did in my early months of starting up the Bureau, my new platform, is I was invited to go to Taiwan to cover, the threats they're facing from Beijing, who wants to take over that what I found to be just wonderfully run and thriving democracy. And so on my trip to Taiwan, I had access at a high level to their officials. And whether they invited me on this international journalist trip because of my knowledge of what's going on in Canada, I'm not exactly sure. I know that they appreciate the accuracy and power of my reporting, and their officials were prepared to share new evidence with me, including one example where they said that their current, it's just weeks away from their presidential election. I was informed months ago that they had found that Beijing was using an organized crime gambling ring in attempts to skew the odds of they have underground bets on what's going to happen in the presidential election. And so this was I was told, a sophisticated scheme where Beijing agents used organized crime in Taiwan to try to interfere in that election. And it's so sophisticated that I'm not sure. They told me that Beijing is funding it. They're using gangsters. It involves underground gambling. And even though I don't have a full picture of what's going on in that case, I was told by their high officials, Beijing interferes in many ways in elections. They've been doing it against us using the United Front for 50 years. And I think their tactics are evolving. And I think I was told they're using organized crime and gambling through this method in Canada too, probably. So I took that all away and I thought, really interesting, because from my protected sources in Canada and also community sources in Vancouver and Toronto are also pointing to the use of gambling, organized crime, strange, sophisticated fundraising that goes into election interference. So, I'm working more on, let's just call them sort of very specific transaction paths and amounts and methods of how our politicians that are either wittingly or unwittingly co-opted are funded. But there's just very many ways. And I'll end the answer this way. It could start with, let's say, cash in, maybe an underground casino. It could start with a legitimate business that is actually, owned by a person who's also involved in shady underground activity. It could even go up all the way up to an international financial company that is used to fund in criminal ways, let's say a leadership campaign of a Canadian politician through the hands of a co-opted politician. I'm giving you a picture that it can go from the dirtiest of organized crime at the street level all the way up to international businesses that are tasked by Beijing to corrupt our politicians with election funds.